This video is brought to you by Squarespace. During the Warring States Period, the Uchiha clan fought a war in several fronts. Naruto Uchiha and his brother Izuna were the generals of the Eastern Front, constantly fighting against the Senju clan and its allies such as the Uzumaki clan. However, there was another general, as powerful as the two previously mentioned, but mostly forgotten in history, the general of the Western Front. His name was Hikaku Uchiha, and this is the story of when he destroyed the Hyuga clan. This event happened 5 years before the founding of the Leaf Village. It all started when Hikaku Uchiha received a message telling him that a very important outpost called Hasami Village was going to be raided by Hyuga invaders. This was a village in the western side of what today is known as the Land of Fire, and it was under the control of the Uchiha clan. It was an important military base to use as a staging ground and set up strikes and strategies during the Warring States period. For that reason, the Hyuga very much wanted it, and they found out the outpost was not heavily guarded. There were only 5 Uchihas present making the defenses of the village. That was because there was so much fighting going on at the same time, and they neglected their defenses there. But Hikaku knew if the Uchiha clan lost Hasami Village, it would be disastrous. Besides, there were several civilians that lived in the village, and the Hyuga clan were notorious for not treating well those they conquered. Hikaku used the ability of his right Mangekyou Hikarigami to rush towards Hasami Village and get there before the Hyuga Army could. He went alone as other Uchihas that were available at the time wouldn't be able to arrive at the same time as Hikaku. But Hikaku ordered a reserve battalion of Uchihas to go towards Hasami Village so that they could release the siege once they arrived. Hikaku's idea was to stall the Hyuga enough so that his reinforcements could arrive and they could protect the village. And if you want me to make a video about Hikaku's Mangekyou abilities, please comment down below because that would be very interesting. Hasami Village was surrounded by a lake from almost every side. There was only one small choke point where the lake didn't surround the city, a place where they used obviously to transport goods and enter the village from. Knowing that, Hikaku set up a very smart defense around the village itself. He created ceilings that he learned after stealing Uzumaki's scrolls and imbued his chakra into the river that surrounded the city. After he cast the jutsu, a massive wall of water rose up around the city and protected it from all sides, except for that one choke point. The good news for Hikaku is that the Hyuga wouldn't be able to assault the city from every side because of his jutsu. They would have to come through the choke point, and that's where Hikaku would meet them. He knew that the Hyuga could try and break his barrier, but it was a very powerful barrier jutsu, and it would probably take them longer to destroy the barrier than to simply burst through the choke point, killing Hikaku. If he could hold them off long enough, he knew they wouldn't have time to break the barrier before his reinforcements arrived. But this was the problem. Hikaku didn't know exactly how many Hyugas were going to show up. When they did, he was surprised. It was much more than he anticipated. He counted 50 Hyugas from the get-go. He was pretty sure there were more Hyugas hidden in the forests around the place, remaining in reserve, but still, he knew he would have to hold the choke point. They wouldn't be able to fight him at the same time. So at least for him, defending would give him the advantage. The leader of this Hyuga battalion was Tetsu Hyuga, a member of the main family. He tried to negotiate with Hikaku upon their arrival, but of course, Hikaku only used that to stall. Hikaku pretended to be tempted by the offer Tetsu gave to him. He offered amnesty to any Uchihas within the city and humane treatment to the civilians. Hikaku made some additional demands and kept on pushing Tetsu so that they would negotiate for longer. Tetsu eventually caught up to what he was doing and got pretty mad, ordering his army to attack the choke point which Hikaku stood on. The army of Hyugas activated their Byakugan and rushed Hikaku Uchiha, who activated his Sharingan, and he met them in taijutsu at first. Of course, fighting the Hyugas in taijutsu is not the best idea in the world, but there were too many of them. Hikaku had no choice, but he was so fast and talented, he could read the movements of the Hyuga even though they were attacking him from all sides. He managed to block and dodge hundreds, if not thousands, of gentle fist strikes, and drawing his own blade, he began striking at the Hyugas. Their defenses weren't enough to stop Hikaku. He infused his sword with fire and began using large-scale fire-style jutsus that destroyed several Hyugas at the same time. Hikaku was known for his prowess in fire style. He also knew water style, which helped him as well. He used the water of the river and also the water of the massive walls he created around the city to attack the Hyugas coming from behind, holding the choke point for dear life, dropping Hyuga after Hyuga. Before we continue the story, I would like to talk about today's sponsor, Squarespace, which is the best tool you can ever find to create your own website. And we know that in this day and age, having a website for your business or even for whatever you want to do online is very important. Squarespace provides you all the web design tools for you to create your own website. It's very impressive. You don't need to have any expertise with web design to make a professional looking website with Squarespace. And if you don't want to create your own website from scratch, another impressive thing is how easily you can simply sell what you have to sell in their website. Products, services, even content. So don't waste any time. Head to the link down below and use the coupon DygoKnight for 10% off in your first Squarespace purchase. And let's get back to the video. Tetsu Hyuga naturally didn't go first. He was the leader of the army, so he was commanding things, but he saw his situation wasn't as good as he thought. This guy was no joke, even though he heard about Hikaku before. He didn't think he would be that powerful. He was just too fast. Even the Byakugan wasn't being useful against him. Hikaku employed genjutsus combined with his ninjutsu attacks and elemental strikes, as well as taijutsu. He was fighting with elegance and sheer talent, using all three ninja disciplines to counter the Hyuga army invading the city. All that without being struck once by a gentle fist attack. After 40 of the 50 Hyugas dropped dead, Tetsu thought about a better strategy and called in his reinforcements, the Hyugas that were in reserve. Hikaku couldn't be contained, and now he began an even stronger assault. The Hyugas in reserve were more experienced. They were veterans. The ones who raided Hikaku were just cannon fodder per se. They were younger, more inexperienced, and easier to kill. With a new assault, the new Hyugas could use more varied jutsus, ranged attacks combined with their gentle fist and rotations. This wasn't gonna be easy for Hikaku, and even though he was using fire style, water style, genjutsu, taijutsu, his sword attacks with fire lacing the sword, he was beginning to get overwhelmed, and he didn't have infinite chakra. Even if he kept on defending the city through the choke point, which by this point in the fight was beginning to get clogged up with Hyuga corpses, he would eventually run out of chakra before the Hyuga army. There were 150 Hyugas in reserve, the veterans, extremely important Hyuga clan members, and Hikaku understood. The Hyuga put a lot of importance in this city he was defending. Hasami outpost couldn't fall, otherwise the Uchiha would be doomed. The Hyugas would be able to implement strikes from behind enemy lines, and so many Uchihas would die. Hikaku had no choice but to activate his Mangekyou Sharingan. And this was no joke. His power spiked, his chakra became more intense, and Hikaku Uchiha became an absolute menace. Madara once said that if he couldn't have his own Mangekyou Sharingan, he would want Hikaku's. He possessed two powerful abilities, insanely powerful at that. They were very extreme hacks that also served to destroy entire armies. Hikarigami, also known as Light of the Gods, in his right eye, and Maotsugami, also known as Light of the Devils, in his left eye. His entire body hurt with the usage of the Mangekyou Sharingan, but he was used to it. He It didn't care about the pain, it only fueled his resolve. It reminded him of how he had awakened his Mangekyou. And the Hyugas stood no chance. All their attacks were useless. They prided themselves so much, saying they had the best ocular jutsu in the world. But Hikaku proved them so wrong that day. Hyuga after Hyuga kept on falling, piling up more bodies within the choke point, and Hikaku was defending the city admirably. He even used his Susanoo to counter aggressive attacks by several Hyugas combining their rotations together. The absolute defense of the Uchiha prevailed over the absolute defense of the Hyuga, but Hikaku knew that using those powers was dangerous. He felt his eyesight waning away. He had to finish the job quickly, and so he went after Tetsu Hyuga, who put up a valiant fight. However, it was in vain. Tetsu pleaded for his life, but after what happened with Sasuke Sarutobi and Mada Sarutobi, Hikaku never took prisoners again. He took the life of Tetsu Hyuga, and as the remaining Hyuga army, which by this point wasn't very big at all, began to flee, Hikaku went after them and made sure they wouldn't return. His reinforcements arrived. Turned out they were necessary. Hikaku put them to use by burying everybody that he had killed just outside of the outpost. But he wasn't mean about it. He gave them a proper burial with shinobi honors. Hikaku knew that the life of a ninja wasn't exactly the best thing in the world, and sometimes you were just commanded to do things you didn't feel like. He felt drained. His eyes ached like never before. He just used them so much. But it was necessary for the Uchiha to survive. If he was overwhelmed in the fight, his reinforcements wouldn't have arrived in time. The Mangekyou Sharingan was put to good use, but how many more times would he be able to do such a thing? He couldn't keep on using those eyes, otherwise he would become a useless ninja. What is an Uchiha without his Sharingan? Regardless, on that day, the Hyuga clan received a grim reminder of which dojutsu was the most powerful one in the world, and which Kekkei Genkai reigned supreme in the lands of fire. It is because of Hikaku Uchiha that the numbers of the Hyuga clan dwindled so much. If you pay attention to the Naruto story, there aren't a lot of Hyugas around. That was the day Hikaku Uchiha gained his nickname, Hikaku, the Solo King. Not really given in universe, but it's mostly out of universe. Still, pretty cool name. Like this video if you enjoyed it. It's very difficult to research those topics. They're very obscure. The sources are in the description below if you want to check them out. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. And also watch this other Hikaku video right here if you want to know how he awakened his Mangekyou. Thank you so much for watching.